Hello and welcome to the Debating Toastcast, a podcast about all things debating, from the Debate Toastmasters Club, 104 London Debaters.
Hi, William here from 104 London Debaters and the Debaters Toastcast. And today I am very lucky to have with me my two fellow debaters and members of 104 London Debaters, Philip Corliss and David Sexton. Hello, hello. Now, they will be allowed to introduce themselves in just a moment, but let me first tell you what we're going to talk about. It is artificial intelligence and its role, if any, in debating. Will it replace us or will it assist us? Perhaps it will assist us at first and then displace us when it doesn't need us anymore. Well, as I said, to help me talk about this and perhaps find out some more about it, I've got Philip and David. So perhaps, Philip, you can introduce yourself first. How long have you been a Toastmaster, and when did you come to 104 London Debaters, and why on earth?
Well, I've been a Toastmaster since 2009, and I used to work in the Windsor area and went to Windsor Toastmasters, and then when I was working in London, I joined a few other clubs. And in 2016, I joined 104 Debaters because it's interesting to find out about current events. And there was a lot of experienced Toastmasters in the club, which made it more interesting.
Wonderful. And David, I ask you the same. How long have you been doing Toastmastering, and when did you come to the debating club?
So I've been Toastmastering for about 7 years now. I started in Guildford Speakers, then moved to Southampton when I moved there for a job for a number of years. And then I got a new job in London and I was looking for a club in London. I'd been doing Toastmastering for a while. So I thought that debating would be a nice, interesting new spin on it. We'd done a few debates in my previous club. So I was keen to work on that angle. That was about, I guess, 2-ish years ago now, 1.5 years, 2 years. And I'm currently the VPE, Vice President Education at 104 Debaters.
Fantastic. All right then, gentlemen. Well, I'm going to ask you a stupid question because I'm really stupid when it comes to artificial intelligence and real intelligence as well, for that matter. I really don't know very much about AI apart from what you read in the general newspapers and I guess watching Hollywood films. But what would you say for debaters in particular? Obviously, we're talking about this from a debating point of view. So what, for us, is AI helpful for, if anything?
Well, we've ChatGPT came onto the scene, I think, in December. There's a lot of talk about it. So I have been trying it. I've tried it a bit already in debates to try and get to write speeches, and it will write speeches for either side of the debate. And quite a good research tool to just get a very understandable, digestible summary of a debate. It also lets you know about the opposition. I've usually done it after we've had the initial brainstorming ideas with our debating teams, and it will usually cover the main points. So it's pretty good at doing a short summary. I don't think that the debates themselves are necessarily the best scripts. It won't use rhetoric or things like that, but it's very quick to get it out there, and it's very nice to kind of test opposition arguments and things like that as well very quickly. So it's a good research tool.
And Philip, what would you say? Is it is it as biased as humans?
Well, I personally was amazed when I first started using ChatGPT. I mean, I'd heard about artificial intelligence working in the background in a lot of large companies doing research into artificial intelligence. And I always thought it was something in the future, but I tried ChatGPT about a month ago, and I've just been using it every day since, and it's really good. And yes, it's biased. Yes, it makes mistakes, but I think it gives me access to knowledge and to the organization of knowledge. I can find out about books I've read in the past, have discussions with it about philosophers, and it comes back with the most interesting information. So yes, it's biased and it's based on human research, but I think it's a tool that's, it's in the early stages, and it's going to get better and better, and it's already very good.
That's quite interesting point about bias. When we did this show, did our brainstorming, I then did use ChatGPT to do the arguments of what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages, and it was, it did do it for the disadvantages, but it very much had just like, well, it's still a useful tool. It has these drawbacks. Whereas for the advantage one, it was just like, it's great. So I do think, yeah, it's been programmed, so it's more positive on its own side. It won't slam itself particularly, and it's probably been programmed to do that. So with software, you have to think that same with Google. Google's bias as well. It gives you ad searches before it will give you other searches and things like that. So it's not a completely unbiased tool.
And does it make it easier for someone who has short of time, perhaps, to commit to doing a debate? Would it sort of lower the entry a little bit in that sense, or?
I mean, I would say it's always better to write your own script than to have someone else write it. But in my previous Toastmaster club, one of the things I did when people were really procrastinating from doing speeches was just use a historical speech and deliver that, because the writing was the bottleneck. And if the speech writing is the bottleneck, particularly for the first speaker or in the first speeches, I think it can be a good tool to actually lower what I call lowering the scope of the task, but still doing it to get into that habit of debating. I'd rather people do something a bit less and actually do the debating than not do it at all. So I think it'd be a useful tool for that, because you'll get a speech out of ChatGPT and one you can deliver, and it's very clearly written and things. But
will everybody end up doing the same speech then?
Yeah, they'll be similar. They'll be slightly. It depends on the prompts you use as well, but they're very different each time if you try it. But yeah, they will be similar. There'll be a similar cadence as well.
Which brings us, I guess, to sort of my next question, which is, so what are the limits, at least currently? I mean, it's an ever evolving and changing field, obviously. But what would you say, Philip, is the main limits at the moment, in your opinion?
Can't give you the exact terminology, but I think people have common sense, and I think there's a thing called the background, which is part of all knowledge, and it's something which a human being can understand, and sometimes the machine doesn't have that sort of contextual experience of a human being, and it makes mistakes. But saying that, I think this is this is going to get better, and I think they're researching that kind of thing at the moment. I would say, the drawback is sometimes it makes mistakes and you don't know, but the advantage is in a debate, I think what you sometimes are looking for is a key sort of a winning argument or a key point, and it involves research, or you have experience of the thing being debated, and you're able to know something which can help you win that debate, because you've got that deeper insight into what you're talking about, and you're able to sway the audience with, and the research is key, really. I know, of course, how you deliver is getting the practice of doing the debate and delivering the arguments is crucial to becoming a good debater, but the research is what enables you to win a debate. And this tool can help you find those, the winning point or the key point, which it's going to be it's going to get better and better. It's going to be useful.
If both sides are using the tool, then they are sort of, you're back at square one, aren't you? So,
well, I think not so much, because we only have so much time to research anyway in our kind of debating, which is, we're debating for fun. We have other jobs at the same time. We have a few weeks to prepare. So we'll be looking at, I guess, more of the cursory engagement. ChatGPT will give you the top level main points of the debate, but it won't put a creative spin on things, which can often be an interesting part of a debate, like define the motion in a way which is correct, but maybe a bit more creative than the literal interpretations. That's something it definitely won't do. It will make stuff up as well, and because it doesn't necessarily know the truth, it's just trying to predict stuff. I've used it a bit for work, and it's made up companies. It will make up laws, and it's not very good for references. And maybe that'll change in the future. But that's something it can do, so it needs to be checked.
So that's something to be wary of when you use it now, basically.
I think the speeches are fairly bland from ChatGPT at the moment, right, in terms of it won't use that much rhetoric, but they're very clearly explained. It's very good at writing stuff very clearly. I wouldn't recommend people use it for their speeches. I think best practice is to write yourself. It depends what you're doing for debating. I think we're debating for ourselves to refine our own minds and for the enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
If you're just using the software to do it all the time, you're not going to get any better, and you're just going to be parroting other people's arguments, not refining your own critical thinking skills. But it's the same as like researching the internet. You look at other people's arguments and what's been said before and the kind of figures which are available and facts which are available, and you're probably going to come up with the same things. It's like I've used it at the end of our brainstorming sessions, and it usually covers off the top things we think of at first anyway. So
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, one thing I'm wondering though, Philip, reading your excellent article on the club blog, you talked about another important element in debating is, of course, not just the facts that you present or the rhetoric you use to present them, but also to decide what's the most important point, right? So what is the most important for your values or for the audience's values? I guess a machine can't necessarily decide that for you, can it?
No, it and I agree 100% with David that you learn by making an effort to learn, and there's something about the blood, sweat, and tears of trying to prepare a debate on your own, which enables you to remember and to be a better communicator. You can't just receive the information from the machine, but saying that it does have a lot of flexibility because it can produce arguments. You could say, could you present the argument in the style of Boris Johnson, and it can do something very interesting in that way. Or you could choose anyone you like, or could you present the argument using these from the point of view of a right wing or a left wing person? So that's, but I think probably the best thing is arguing with it. So it makes a point I ask it about a book that I know quite well, and it'll respond telling me about the book, and I'll say, are you sure about that? And I'll argue with it, and it comes back with the most articulate responses, which are quite hard to work with. So it tests you, pushes you.
Right, I see. So perhaps we could have a debate against the machine. I mean, that was done in that project that we talked a little bit about before we started recording, which was called, what was it called again? Project Debater, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where they actually took a machine that programmed a machine, programmed an algorithm, whatever you call it, and then they had it debate one of the world champion debaters, and yeah, it came out. So I think it lost once, and then it was a draw, and it won once or something like that, or it was very similar, very close, the results. And the audience had answered on a question put to them on a poll of which of the two debaters that were most informative in terms of their learning facts, that the audience learned facts, and that was indeed the machine debater, which as the guy said who led the project, this was expected because a machine will use a lot of facts and figures. They have all these billions of facts basically ready to just mine and grab and use, whereas a human will have to remember and recall it and articulate it, and may perhaps use more, like David said earlier, you're not going to get the same level of emotional rhetoric from a machine, perhaps. So I guess
maybe not for the moment, but what I will say is I don't think it matters even if you get machines which are better at debating than people, especially for us, because we're debating as a hobby. We've had machines which are faster than people for 100+ years, but we still have people racing and doing 100-meter dash to see who's the fastest, because there's a point in doing it and people doing it. In chess, I think it's been like 40 years, and machines have been better than people, but people still play and compete at chess. Yeah. So I don't think it matters for debate, even if machines do get better, but people will still want to do it and test themselves.
So finally, then, I think, can we present to our listeners some top tips as to how exactly we go about for using it the most effectively and sensibly, shall we say, so that it can actually be useful for you. So I'll start with David and then come to Philip. So David, if you because you said you've used this a little bit, so perhaps you've got some top tips.
So what I've done, and that's been after we've had those initial brainstorming rounds with the teams, I've then used GPT to look at either side of the argument and get to write a few things based on different prompts to see if you come up with any areas you've missed. I think maybe find one or two arguments you haven't really covered. As I said, it'll get the top thing, the things you get from Googling anyway, those kind of top arguments, and it will write them in a sensible way. But it won't really put very much rhetoric in it. It won't be creative about the kind of slant to take on. That's something you start to make a decision for. So one of the things, it won't do anything very recent at the moment. If you're using Chat GPT, I think it's like 2001 it's gone up to. Anything more recent than that, it'll try and refuse to answer, or maybe it makes something up. So I won't do anything super recent.
Well, yes. Well, I'm sort of a bit addicted to it. But I like asking it questions because it doesn't argue. I mean, it doesn't mind me asking it questions. So I can ask it as many questions as I like, and I can ask absolutely tactless questions of it, and it'll put forward a beautiful argument, and then I can tear it to pieces by asking it questions. And you can practice. If you ask an expert normally, and you keep asking them questions, they'll say, please go away. But
what's the one wording you would use to get the most interesting answer, you think, or what have you found so far?
I think why.
Well, with that, I say thank you very much to Philip Corliss, David Sexton, my fellow members in 104 London Debaters, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast, and until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to the Debating Toastcast. Feel free to leave a comment, critical or encouraging. We welcome both. And if you'd like more information about joining the club or coming first as a guest, please have a look at our website, 104londondebaters.club, or send us an email on info@104londondebaters.club. That's info@104londondebaters.club. Thank you for listening.